Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to show you how to use the pen feature on the Cricut machine to address envelopes. I made a video on this several years ago, but design space has changed and I have some new tips and hacks for you. I have some tips to make addressing envelopes easier and faster, and a great hack at the end for making sure your text is lined up exactly where you want it on your envelope. Around this time of year, it is great to utilize this when you are addressing Christmas cards. You can also use this feature when sending out wedding invitations or just mailing any cards out. My handwriting isn't the best, so I love how neat this looks, and you don't have to write out each one by hand. First, what I'm going to do is grab a rectangle that is the same size as my envelope. My envelope for my Christmas cards is 7.25 by 5.25. So what you'll do is go to Shapes, grab a square, and whatever size your envelope is, you will make it that size in Cricut Design Space. Typically, I would use this as a guide or a template, but I'm actually going to keep it as a cut and have it go over to the Make It screen, and it's part of my little hack that I have for this. I do think I'm going to change it to white so I can look at this easier. Now I am going to click on text and I am going to grab a font. You do want to choose a writing font for this, otherwise you will get bubble letters. To make this easier for me, I choose a writing font in Cricut Design Space. You can play around with other fonts that are not Cricut fonts, but they do have to be super thin. I've used some before in the past that have worked, that they're thin enough it doesn't create that bubble letter, but today I'm going to show you how to use a Cricut font. What I like to do is click on this filter button. I am going to select writing. I'll click back on the filter button. You can see right here it says writing underneath the fonts, and I am going to search for my font. I'm actually going to type it in. I'm going to use Four Seasons. I'll select on that. Here is where you would type in the address. I'm just going to type in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This is an all caps type of font, so if you want one that isn't all caps, you can search in Design Space and see if you can find something else that you like better. Okay, here's my address. I am going to make it smaller, and this is going to be who I'm sending it out to. I'm just going to move it to the center of my envelope. I'm also going to highlight over my rectangle and my font. I will go up to Align and select Center just so that's right in the center of my envelope. For the return address, you can also have the Cricut write it out. Last year, I actually created print then cut stickers to put on these, and I find that a lot easier. I can link that YouTube video down in my description box. But for today's video, I am going to have the Cricut write, so I will just duplicate this, and then I will just make it a little bit smaller. I also think I'm going to bring my line spacing in a little bit. Okay, I think that looks good. Since this is a writing font, the operation is automatically set to a pen, and you can choose what pen you're using. I am just using my black fine point pen. I should have mentioned this when I grabbed the font, but if yours is showing up as bubble letters still, the style might be set to regular. As you can see, that made it into bubble letters, so your style might show that. So make sure you just switch it to writing and it will look like how you want it to look. Now that I have everything ready, I am going to select everything. I like to just drag my mouse over it. It's a lot faster, but you can hit Shift in your keyboard and select each layer. But here you can see they are all selected. I'll come down and select Attach. Let's say you have like 50 plus letters to mail out. It's going to take a long time to type everybody's addresses in here. So what I would recommend doing is go to a Google Doc and type up everybody's addresses. I find it a lot faster to type it in there. Then you just copy it. When you come in here, you'll hit text and just hit paste. I hit Command V on my keyboard. I had just copied this one, and I find that a lot faster. Okay, now that I have everything attached, I can click Make It. I'm using a Cricut Maker, so it's asking me if I want to use it on a mat or not. You can use any of the Cricut machines for this. When you get to this screen, you're going to want to move some things around. For me, I find it hard to just set my envelope down right in the top corner and to have it lined up exactly. So what I like to do is bring it down to this top corner here. I just bring it right up to that. And I also bring the top along this line and the side along this line. So it's an inch down and an inch over. And I try to just kind of line it up as best as I can. You can zoom in too, which is really helpful. Okay, I think that looks good. Let's say you're doing lots of envelopes, then you can do 2 on a page. Let's say I add 2. I'll have to redo this, but what I would do is bring this down to that square, and then I would just bring this down and have it right in the middle of the 6 and 7. That way you can have it draw 2 at the same time. I'm just going to hide this one, and I'll double check and make sure this is in a good spot. Now that I have that lined up, I'll hit continue. This is where the hack comes in, and I have found this extremely helpful. Right now it's set up where it's going to use the Cricut blade and cut out this rectangle, but I don't want to do that because I already have the envelopes obviously cut out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose a random setting. It tells me to load my black pen and my fine point blade. I am just going to take my fine point blade out. It'll think that it's still there and it will start to cut, but it's not actually going to be cutting. So I feel like this really helps, and I will show you on my Cricut machine how I do this. So here I just place my envelope 1 inch down and 1 inch over, and like I said, this just helps make sure that the writing is lined up where you want it. I take my fine point blade out of the machine. When I close the clamps, it doesn't like click shut, but it still closes where it's fine. Another quick tip, I like to do a little squiggle on a piece of paper with my pen. As you can see, it's a little faded at first, so I do that before it starts drawing in the Cricut machine to prevent it from doing that when it first starts drawing. I load the mat into the machine and the Cricut will start drawing. I meant to time how long it took and I totally forgot. I feel like it was less than 5 minutes, but I don't know for sure. I would recommend using your brayer tool when placing the envelope down because it lifted up in the top right corner for me. And here's where the machine thinks it is going to cut. As you can see, it's going to go around the rectangle, but it's obviously not going to actually cut anything out without the blade in it. And once again, doing it this way, it just makes it a lot easier to have your writing lined up exactly where you had it in Cricut Design Space. Here's how it turned out. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you use the Cricut pen for addressing envelopes. Also, I would love to hear what you would like to see from me in 2024 for Cricut tutorials. If you just bought a Cricut, what do you want to learn from it? I am going to be planning my videos soon.